Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Kloud-12's Roundtable discussion for district and school leaders, leading effective change in instruction and discipline. Our guest speaker today is Mr. Shane Purdy. My name is Emmanuel Reddish. I currently serve as the Customer Engagement Manager here at Kloud-12. A little bit about myself. I have a little over 16 years in education. Before officially joining the Kloud-12 team, I've served as a teacher, a department chair, building administrator, district administrator, as well as serving on numerous state Department of Education committees. I have worked 3 years as a Kloud-12 customer. We expanded from an initial deployment to a district-wide implementation. Also on this call, I have my wonderful customer success team. I have Ms. Kelly Martinez, our Director of Customer Success, Caitlin Day, Customer Success Specialist, Jamie Ulmer, Customer Success Operations Specialist, and Roxanne Bennerman, Customer Success Specialist. We are all a team and we're so glad to have you here, and we're just excited to learn and grow together. So at this time, if you'll take a moment to type into the chat space your first and last name, your role in the district, your district and school name, and then the city name or location of where you are located, just to kind of get a sense of who's here. And also thank you so much for taking your time out to be here today. All right, welcome Jay Ellis, Callaway Elementary, Troup County. Shout out to Troup County. We have Mary Jean Albritton, Assistant Principal of Seminole County, Donaldsonville, Georgia. Shout out to Seminole. We have Thomas Moat, sixth grade administrator, Troup County School System, Garner Newman Middle School. Improvement in teacher instruction is something he's looking to gain. Welcome, Thomas Moat, and shout out to Troop again. Susan Chambliss, academic coach from Seminole, another shout out to Seminole. And we have Whitney Fulford, academic coach, Seminole County. And we have others also joining into the room. And also Mary Humans, academic coach, Seminole County, welcome. And I also see as others are coming into the room as well, I'll be admitting them in. So welcome everyone. I'm just so excited to have everyone here. This is going to be an awesome session, okay? Shane Purdy is a proud educator of 25 years, serving all over the state of Georgia, and believes in making education one of the greatest gifts someone can receive. He grew up a minister's son, so moving frequently doesn't faze him. He was always taught as a child that moving to a new place brings new adventures, and one is able to learn and grow from those experiences. He taught English at the high school level for 12 years while coaching football and basketball, while also teaching advanced placement classes, serving as department chair, and serving on the leadership team. He realized the tools he was using to lead all of those areas could be used on a larger platform to hopefully have a greater effect. After making the transition from the classroom to the administrative offices, he wanted to continue being a sponge and learn as much as possible to make himself better. He gladly served in positions such as an assistant principal, athletic director, principal of a middle school, principal of a high school, assistant superintendent of curriculum and federal programs, assistant superintendent of operations, assessment and accountability director, and human resources director. After assisting many great systems, superintendents, schools, principals, teachers, students, and communities, he has learned so much in each place that helped him improve his craft. He is presently serving as a middle and high school principal, which is one of the most unique challenges he has taken. Being on the board of directors for the Georgia Association of Secondary School Principals also allows him the opportunity to help other middle and high school principals and to learn from them as well. He looks forward to continuing his growth as an educator and a leader. Kloud-12 and I offer a warm welcome to our guest speaker and presenter for today's roundtable discussion in the topic of leading effective change in instruction and discipline, Mr. Shane Purdy.
All right, thank you, Emmanuel. I appreciate that introduction. That sounds like I'm too old and I need to retire. Appreciate that, though. I do love what I do. And if I didn't, I would have left this profession years ago. So some of the things I want to talk to you about are really a compilation of everything that I believe in as far as what I've done and who I am and how I lead. So here we go. go ahead and there we go. One thing we saw here, this is my third full year here at Seminole County Middle High School. And you have to remember, I came here with 3 weeks before COVID hit. All right. So a lot has happened since I've been here. And on top of that, we were wanting to do some different things here from ground zero up and just try to make it a place that everyone wanted. So there's a lot of pride in this community, and they were wanting some changes, some things to change. And I couldn't ask for a better faculty, a better group around me, administratively, than what I have. They've been so gracious, and even though they they have to trust me sometimes on some of the things that we do, they go right along with it, and they're learning as they go. And we all know what change brings. I mean, it's scary. Change is scary. So. But we're doing it together, and I really enjoy this group. Now, I want to reiterate a couple of things about my background. I am a minister's son, which, yes, I did have to move around quite a bit. And I was an English teacher for, 13 years in the classroom, I believe, at the high school level. And I coached football and basketball throughout all those years. And things never were the same for me all throughout my life. Never the same. Even as a teacher, I would still pull out my filing cabinet, and all my folders I had for all the lessons I had throughout the year, I knew it would be different the next year. So I would pull out all my files and just throw them away and start again every single year. As a coach, you have a different team every single year. And as a minister's son, there were times I felt like I was never going to be in the same school over 2 years. So anyway, that's the story of my life, and it has helped mold me into what I am today, I guess, good or bad there. But it has been a learning experience. Now, my experience as a school level educational leader before Kloud-12, and remember, we brought in Kloud-12 to only 6 teachers last year. And the 6 teachers we chose to put in their classroom with the Kloud-12 cameras, we knew these were strong leaders within our school. And the whole idea behind it was the strategic placement or the strategic choice of those teachers. If they talk about it positively, then the other teachers will buy into it more. They're not going to buy into everything that I say. That's just, it doesn't matter who I am. They may do it out of compliance, but they may not have the complete buy-in. But peer pressure is the best pressure, and sometimes the worst pressure, but it is the best pressure in this case. Couple of things we use it for, obviously, without Kloud-12 in the classroom, we may not have the exact truth of what is being said between maybe student and student or teacher and student, but that camera does not lie. And I could give example after example after example of what has occurred with just the 6 teachers. But now we have it in every single classroom starting in October of this year. We have it in every single classroom. I could give you example. I mean, I was just telling one of my assistant principals I had to come up here and do this. And he said, shoot, I could tell you a story about just yesterday with Kloud-12. And it was a kid telling the teacher that another student was picking on her, and he went back and looked at it, and lo and behold, there was nothing that occurred whatsoever. The kid just made it up. Classroom evaluations. They have been Emmy-worthy performances numerous times throughout my career before Kloud-12. And now we can just say, listen, we want you to pick a lesson and show it to us. And I'm going to talk about my academic coach that we added this year, excuse me. And she has been a godsend to our school, because there are so many things we are doing within the school. Our administrative team have not been able to put our hands on the teachers as far as helping them with their instructional level. And we were just expecting them to hurry up and get to where we want them to become, instead of doing what we asked them to do with their own kids, which is teach them and help them, bring them along as you go. And so our academic coach, Dr. Fulford, she has done a great job with that, helping these teachers. And we're going to get more into that in just a minute with the classroom evaluations of themselves. All right. Number 3 is a need for a tool to assist with improvement in behavior and instruction. Like I just said earlier, to improve the behavior, having a non-biased eye in the room brings accountability. We see it with our school bus. All our buses, they have cameras. Well, discipline has dropped dramatically on school buses due to, and that's not just here, but it's everywhere, just because of the cameras. And now with the cameras we have, you can see in between seats. It's great. The police, you see police everywhere with the body cams. It brings more accountability to what their actions are. And for us in our middle high school, it's led to more instructional time, because if the kids, if we can take away some of the things that are going on in the classroom, then we can have more instructional time, because the kids are more aligned to what we're doing, and also they're not getting in as much trouble. One of the things we've seen with our kids is when that thing is on, we've had teachers go back and show the class, and you tell me how you are. So not only are they using it for a tool, they being the teachers, using it for a tool for their improvement, but also to improve the behavior of the kids. And the kids are honest with themselves, and they can't believe they're doing what they're doing in the classroom. So it's okay to drop a little bit of instruction time to help with that, because if you can improve the behavior in the classroom, the instruction time will increase as well, and the effectiveness of the instructional time as well. All right, and then the improvement with instruction for all teachers, all levels of expertise. One thing I want to hit on with that is, we talk about the different levels of kids we have in our classrooms with differentiation. Differentiation, we hear that word all the time. Well, what about the differentiation with teachers? If we have kids in our classroom where we have some that are more gifted and they're moving along quicker, we can give them more in-depth assignments. And then we have our I guess, middle of the road students. And then you have your lower level kids that are just needing anything that you can hopefully get them to be on task. Same thing with our teachers. We have different levels of teachers. Here in Georgia, we have a TAP program where we take people from the outside of, when we say outside of the educational environment, they didn't get an educational degree as far as in education. They may have got it in business or whatever it may be, and they want to jump into teaching. Well, we want to help them along. And why would we just hold them out or hang them out to dry, where instead we can train them and help them get better? And that's by watching video. Being a coach, the camera doesn't lie. Every coach in America uses video to help get themselves better. It's not to fire people. It's not to do all those, derogatory things. It's mainly to get people better, to help improve. And that's what we do with Kloud-12. We have to create the environment, and it really is, and we're going to talk about that later too, creating the environment of trust. And if you can create the environment of trust with your staff and a culture, it changes everything in how you use Kloud-12. All right, so the principals out there, I just want you to know you're not alone. And research proves that we're not alone. As you can see in the most recent EdWeek Research Center monthly survey, half of all school and district leaders, 44%, say they are receiving more threats of violence by students now than they did in the fall of 2019. In addition, many students have struggled with the transition back to in-person schooling after spending much of the past year and a half learning from home. Now, I will say this, if I would have had my 30 years in last year, with the way it was a full year for these students when they returned from COVID, I might have walked away and just retired. It was a very painful year. And after talking to principals across the state, everyone felt the same way that I talked to. Nearly 90% of U.S. public schools say the COVID-19 pandemic has hurt the socioeconomic development of their students, according to federal data. Now, 40% increase in physical fights or threats of physical fights, and 61% saw an increase in classroom disruptions. We saw the exact same thing here. And I'm going to show you some stats we have in just a second, but this year, having the cameras in place has changed so much, and it helped us get some procedures in place for our teachers where there were consistencies amongst every single classroom. And again, the video doesn't lie. It shows when we ask them to look at this, you'll see every single teacher had the exact same thing going on in their classroom. Anyway, we'll go to the next slide. We have a curriculum director, I'll call it curriculum director. It's our assistant superintendent of teaching and learning. She coaches our coaches. As a matter of fact, 3 coaches are on here, so I have to watch what I say about that person at the district office. But she coaches our coaches, and she uses the book John Hattie's Visible Learning. And what she does when she coaches them, it helps our coaches coach up our teachers. And it's been great help. And as you can see, micro teaching has one of the highest teacher controlled effects on student achievement with an effect size of 0.88, the average effect size being 0.40. So you can see how large of an effect size that is. Now, what is micro teaching? It's a teacher training technique for learning teaching skills. It employs real teaching situations for developing skills and helps to get deeper knowledge about teaching practices. So the Stanford technique involves the steps of plan, teach, observe, replan, reteach, and reobserve. And this is really no different than an effective teacher. They do the exact same thing. They plan, they teach the students, and then they observe their practice with, some type of assessment. Then they go back and replan, reteach, and reassess, because you want that. The whole idea is we're teaching students to learn. That's really it. And the same thing with our teachers. Why would we teach our teachers any differently than what we're asking them to do with their students? So this has evolved as a core component in 91% of the teaching development programs. All right. It builds stronger teaching skills for the beginners and senior teachers, increases self-confidence, improves in-class teaching performances, develops classroom management skills. What our academic coach does here at the middle high school, Miss Dr. Fulford, she will have our teachers watch a video and then of themselves teaching, and then they have to assess themselves, which is the next slide, I do believe, or maybe it'll be the one after this one. We'll get to that in just a second. I want to reiterate where we were in 2021 with incidences, and you can see across from August 21 to December 21, and then August of 22 to December of 22. And as of today, we've already looked at our data for January, because today is the last day of January. We have fallen even more as far as we're decreasing. So we're at 21.3% decrease, and which means that's an increase in instructional time in the classroom. And it only means that we will, it will go up even more once we get the January data in there. All right, the next slide will tell you, I'm about 3 slides ahead of us, so I'm going to slow my ship down. And I know people in my building are probably laughing, the ones that are watching this video. All right, because they know I'm always trying to run too fast. The video, what we can do with this video, when we have it, we can review it when there are conflicting accounts. And that's happened numerous times here in the office. We'll have 2 students come up here. Let's say a fight broke out or argument or whatever else in the classroom. They come up here. The adrenaline rush that they have, sometimes they forget what really happens. And I've had them even in my office. One will tell me their side of the story. The other one will tell me their side of the story. And I'll say, okay, let's watch the video. And we'll rewind it and we'll watch. And 2 boys that got into a really good fight one day, I had them in my office and they said, we didn't even know we did that. And they don't. Their adrenaline is so high that they don't even, it's almost like a blackout. They don't remember what has occurred. So you think about what we were doing before Kloud-12, we were really going on kids' words or the adult word of who was in the classroom. And who knows, it's almost like going and you're all, 5 of us watch a wreck happen on the road, and all 5 of us may have different accounts, but that video does not lie. The video has been reviewed during student conferences, obviously, and the administration. We've been able to identify other incidents while watching videos, which I can tell a quick story on. My assistant principal and I were trying to figure out something with Kloud-12 one day, because one of our teachers was out the day before, and she said, I really feel like something was going on here, and will you review it? So we got into the live version of her classroom to go back and review yesterday's version of it. And when we did, we saw a kid secretly pull out their cell phone, which is a no-no in our school. And we went down immediately to her room and said, listen, we're not trying to play Big Brother, but you asked us to look at it and it came on live, and we need to let you know this student's on their phone right now. So teachers can also see when people are cheating. And what they love, 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 I hear this over and over again from the teachers, they can rewind the video up to 15 minutes of live coverage, instant rewind. And they have shown kids, because in the past, and I had one teacher tell me, he said, you know, I've known they're probably cheating, but I can't catch them red-handed. But he said, now I can catch them red-handed because I can walk over there and say, you tell me what you were doing here, because the video is showing me that you're looking on a piece of paper in your book bag. And it's just changed everything. Now, they can also send these recordings to athletic coaches. The athletic coaches, unfortunately, you know, some of our athletes aren't perfect. And so when they get in trouble in the classroom, their video, we can't call the coach every single time. But we all know athletic coaches can probably give more discipline than we can in the office sometimes, a different type of discipline. And that the kids may remember a little bit better. So what we do, the teachers are just now sending the recordings to their athletic coaches and say, okay, we'll let the coach watch, and then he can deal with you when you get to practice. So anyway, that's been helpful. All right, on the next slide, this is what we do with academics. In September, we had a video reflection guide emailed to all the faculty so they could be aware of what was going to happen. Our academic coach, Dr. Fulford, created a Loom video and reviewed the reflection guide and how each teacher should use it. And we're going to see that on the next page. Kloud-12 training was in October. And this is when Ms. Martinez and Ms. Day, they helped us out, helped our teachers out. And they did a fantastic job where our teachers felt very comfortable with what they could do with Kloud-12. They weren't perfect, but we didn't want them perfect right now. We just wanted them to be able to access it. Teachers attended a virtual training with Kloud-12. And then November, we had our first PLC over the first reflection, and they had to watch themselves. And that is very, very painful. Like, that would be like me watching me right now later on. I do not want to watch what I'm saying to y'all right now. But if I want to improve, I probably would. The faculty, apparently I don't want to improve. The faculty watched a video of their choice and completed the video reflection guide. The teachers discussed their findings at the PLC meeting, and that was very transparent. You're going to see some of their comments in just a few minutes. In December, the reflection was due to our assistant principal and the impact team. And we have a thing called the impact team. We have a organization called GASSP, and that helps us with instruction here in Georgia. And we sent a group of teachers over to Savannah, and they had just an incredible time together where they really broke down what we do as a school and how can we improve and where are deficiencies and how can we improve those deficiencies as a school. And they came back with a plan, and it has really, really helped. And they look at data. So not only do we come back with a plan, but now we're going to say, okay, how are we going to hold ourselves accountable and how are we going to measure this? All right, so what are we going to do with the data and how are we going to show improvement with our data? And that's what the impact meets every single month. They look at discipline data. They look at our MAP data, which is benchmark assessments. They look at testing data. It just helps tremendously with us and our growth in our school. All right, so each teacher was asked to complete a second video reflection guide, turn it into the impact team, and determine the next steps of the school improvement plan process. The forms were turned in anonymously so that we have that, they don't feel like they're being pinpointed. We want them to be transparent with us as much as they possibly can. And it was determined the engagement was the next step in the process. And that's what we're working on right now. Engagement strategies. So we had our impact team come up with 4 different types of engagement strategies, and now they're looking at themselves, or they just did, and they turned in the data of what they're doing with engagement strategies. All right, so this is the reflection guide that Dr. Fulford created, and she used it based on what we can use with Kloud-12, and then of course the gym night, what we were talking about earlier, what they're learning as an academic coach. Now, you can see the different ones over there. Students were engaged in learning. Students interacted respectfully. Students clearly understood how they are supposed to behave. And of course, they rate themselves 1 through 7. Those are quick things to talk about. But then on the bottom, you can see teacher talk time, total time. That's difficult because you have to use a stopwatch. You have to go back through. You have to really figure out how much time was I talking and how much did I allow the students to talk? Because we really know through research that the students learn better but from each other when they're talking amongst themselves, or they're talking things through. The community building, time on task, how many minutes were the students on task, percentage on task, the ratio of interactions, were you reinforcing, were you correcting, the expectations, and then of course the instruction part. You can see beginning routine, the stories, thinking prompts, cooperative learning, all of that is in there. The direct instruction, seat work, labs, quizzes, they can show all of that in there. It helps. It really helps our teachers really sit and think. Now, does this take time? It does take a little bit of time, but does it help make them become better teachers at their craft? I mean, this is their profession, and we want them to become better. It's not something we're making them do as far as, hey, you've got to do this or else. We want them to improve. Excuse me. I think we had probably 3 teachers that did not turn it in this go around, and for whatever reason, and we'll get to that I'm sure soon, just me, the administrative team with the teachers, but they're doing so much, but they really do want to improve, and that's what it's all about here. All right, next slide. These are some of the comments. You can see their transparency, and this made me feel really good as a principal to know that our teachers would say this about themselves. And these are things, the reflection statements after their first one. I learned that my students know the routine of the room. However, engagement decreases as the class continues. I need to increase my correction ratio and work on maintaining more engagement. This next one, I tend to call on the same students. And if I were to go back and watch myself teach, if we would have had video, I think that's archaic days, but if we would have had video back then, in the classrooms, I probably did the same thing, because it tends to make your classroom flow faster with what you want to teach. Instead, you need to have them struggle. The kids need that struggle time. Give more collaborative time. I talk too much. And then I spent too much time asking them to be quiet. But when I watched it back, they were actually talking about the lesson. They were more engaged than I gave them credit for. And that says a whole lot, that they see this about themselves. Now, the next slide are things that they had to, Miss Dr. Fulford, she made them do goal statements. And Mrs. Albritton, she is our assistant principal that's over our academics, and she really sees us through, and she works closely with Dr. Fulford on a lot of this stuff, and she puts a lot of this together for me as well. But during instruction, 25% of the students were off task after the 20-minute mark. My goal, 95% of students on task throughout the entire lesson. Ask more probing and guiding questions, incorporate more collaborative group and partner work. They do see what the students gravitate toward more, and when they're engaged and when they're learning things. During instruction, 7 out of 10 students were actively engaged with working with their partner. My goal is to find a way to engage the other 2 students. And I know Dr. Fulford's already talked about some different ways that she wants to improve that for them. And then the last one, my goal is to use more engaging strategies so that students will remain on task, and the goal of students on task 90%. So I think we're doing, they're moving in the right direction. Remember, this is only since October. So I'm very proud of our teachers. All right, so these were the questions that we asked on that other, where they rated themselves 1 through 7. We have turned it into graphs here. And like I said, Dr. Fulford and Mrs. Albritton have shared this with me, and they put this together for me. But students engage in high-level conversation. One thing our teachers realized when they thought the high-level conversation, the engagement part, and you see the bottom right-hand, students engaged in learning, I think they understood after they looked at it and rated themselves that they were misconstruing what compliance is and what engagement was, or what engagement is. And so the compliance, they probably chalked it up as engagement. And so right now we're seeing a little bit of a change in how they view themselves for this upcoming set of data that we just collected this month. So anyway, you can see where they are. I love the fact that our teachers see it, we make it part of who we are, and we're actually making everything purposeful. All right, next slide. Okay, so Emmanuel, that kind of wraps it up on my end as far as the presentation.
Yes, and thank you so much, Mr. Purdy, for this amazing presentation. I've actually been jotting down some questions as you were speaking, and I want to just further our conversation. And as we go on, you can write in the comments if you have a question. You can also raise your hand with the reaction button, and I'll allow you to come up and speak. A couple questions to get us started, though. Mr. Purdy, you mentioned in your presentation that this is your first year having an academic coach, and I see that you've had a lot of gains so far this year. What are your plans moving forward after this year?
Okay, it's a great question. We haven't, no, I'm kidding. I do have a plan. Yeah, as you saw, we want to work on engagement. We were going to continue to work on that, but the academic rigor part, that's our next step with our teachers. And also, as Miss Albrecht is sitting in the same office with me right now, so she can keep me on track, is the purpose. We want our kids to have a purpose in all that they do. And if I could show you my little whiteboard in here on my wall, you would see it as circled, that we know is starred. We know that's what we want everything to be around, because there are so many kids that come to any school in America and they don't have a purpose. If you recall, even if you really recalled what you were like in high school, in ninth grade, you're just, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you're just happy to be in high school and being around all these older kids, and it's so cool. But then in 10th grade, you go in this dark hole that you have no idea where you're going. Right. You have no idea. But in 11th grade, you start seeing a little bit of the light, but it is a difficult year academically. And then 12th grade is when you see, okay, I have one foot in the high school, but the other foot is outside because I'm getting ready for my next chapter of life. But we don't ever tell them back in ninth grade what their options are. And we don't apply the math or the science or the English or the social studies to what these kids want to do. So we took a group of people over to Germany at fall break. And we went over there for a week and studied their schools. And we're a big agricultural area here. So we're going to do a student swap, basically, with what their vocational school is. And we're going to learn from their farming, and they're going to learn from our farming, but we're also tying it into the academic side, because we have kids that really want to go into farming, but we have a big welding program here. Mm-hmm. But some of our welders will tell you, I could care less about math, science, English, social studies. So there's a new workforce ready pathway that we're trying to implement in our school. And we're not talking about, in our size school, we're talking about maybe 15 kids. But these kids, they can come to school and they can kind of do what Germany does. Germany, you kind of pick your path and you go with it, but everything you do is directly related to that path. Well, everything that the kids do is going to be directly related to the path that they want to do. We have so many kids that want to go into welding or farming or whatever it may be, but we don't give them a sense of purpose. They go to, let's say algebra 2. Well, why? Right. Do with what I'm doing in life. But if we start making questions and assignments directly related to what they do in life or what they want to do in life, that's their purpose. It gives them a focus. I mean, it gives them something tangible that they want to do in life. And we have kids in our classes that may not alternative. Maybe it'd be a disruption. They put their head down. They're not engaged. Well, with academic, now you can focus in on some of the other kids in there that need more rigorous assignments. And honestly, I've used that as an overused example now, but the welding or the agriculture, you can have rigor in their own field, and they don't even know they're doing rigor, because what they're doing is being. So anyway, that's where we want to go with it. We also have a thing called tribe time in our school. Older people, it would be like homeroom, or it's like advisement. We go to that. Everything we do is for a purpose.
All right. Also, earlier you mentioned that you're working to get students engaged. I spent some time a few years back with the Philip Shilexty Center when they talk about true student engagement versus strategically compliant or not engaged. This is such a hot topic in education today, and I love that you mentioned how video is helping to gauge the student engagement. What do you think are some of the struggles with student engagement today, and what are some things that you're looking forward to doing to help improve that? This is a question to everyone here. What are some thoughts on, compliance versus that real student engagement, and how do we help teachers understand the difference? And I'm actually putting one of our people on the spot right now. But Dr. Ellis, if you don't mind, what are your thoughts on student engagement and compliance, and how are you all helping teachers to understand that difference out at Callaway Elementary?
I think one thing for us is just that reflective piece, and then meeting during our PLCs. We have a lot of students, and sometimes like we tell teachers, it's not that you're not working hard, we just need to work smarter and not necessarily harder. So it's the same thing with our students. They're working, it's just that their instruction is not always as focused or as intentional as it needs to be. So using the camera system has been great for us, because we've been able to see our students. If some of them aren't actively engaged and some of them appear to be, but are they actually working on the intent and the meat of that lesson? And so when teachers go back, I mean, they've got a million things going on at one time. So when they go back and then review those clips, because that's what we've been asking them to do, just small clips at a time. When they're able to go back and review those, and those very intentional pieces like foundations, for example, they're able to see even within their own efficiency, where they can cut a little bit of time, or where some wasted time is here, or where students aren't on task. It's just things you don't have really the insight or time to do in the actual moment.
I like that. And thank you so much for giving us that insight as well on that. I would be very interested to hear from either Thomas Moat or Dr. Kelly Adams about how are they handling student engagement versus that compliance in your area of Garner-Newman.
A little bit different from Dr. Ellis. We ask the students if we see a classroom where they look like they're just sitting still and they're not focusing, or they're focusing, but are they really learning and grasping? We'll have them watch the video and say, what's going on during this time? And they'll tell us, hey, we were zoned out. I was thinking about the football game or the basketball game. So we actually just ask students, we interview them, not the whole class, but we kind of go through this and kind of, pick and choose. It's like, well, do you think they're on task? And some of them may say, yes, I was just thinking, which is great. But then some say, yeah, I really don't even know what we were talking about at that time. And then we ask, well, what could we do different? What was going on? And just kind of get to know the student differently. Like Mr. Purdy said, sometimes they don't realize what they're doing until after the fact.
Right.
And they'll sit there for 5-10 minutes and like, oh, we don't even know, we don't even know what was going on. And it reminds me of my wife who will drive to work, but then she'll call me and she goes, I don't even know how I got here. And I'm like, well, I don't need to know all that. I'm just glad that you got to work. But, so I think reflection, and not the teachers, but also the students, we use the class for that. And that helps us out a lot.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And Dr. Adams?
To piggyback off what Thomas said, is a lot of it has to do with that feedback from the students, as far as having conversations with the kids and knowing your kids and being comfortable with saying, hey, how'd you like that activity? What's your takeaway from that? And a lot of times we've been, lately we've been really working hard on walkthroughs. So we've done tons of walkthroughs. So not only do we get to ask the students, we also get to go in there and look and kind of make eye contact with the kids. And then a lot of times we see them in the hall, ask them, hey, what were you doing then? You seemed a little complacent, or how could that have been better? And so that they feel, I will say this, with our kids and our relationship with the kids, I think they feel very comfortable with it, with speaking their mind and letting us know what they think too.
Love that. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Kelly Martinez, I do want to ask you, if you don't mind, I noticed you said, I love the idea of involving students in the reflection process. And I love that. Do you care to elaborate on that comment?
Well, I think it's even goes back to the idea of, as teachers, sometimes we think we're the star of the show. And I think that that's what's really valuable about having the ability to watch that back. And I think in some ways it starts with emphasizing that they're not the star of the show and kind of shifting that mindset. And I think it's like those small bite-sized steps. And I really love what Shane did about tracking how much time the teacher's talking versus the student. And then I think it's like that timeline, like, right, you're helping that teacher first shift the mindset that it should be the students who are engaged, shouldn't be me. How much time are we talking? And then shifting it even to that reflection process, because, ultimately we can walk out feeling one way about a lesson, but we're not the ones that it matters to. If those students walk out and they say they haven't grasped the lesson, all that ultimately matters is how they feel and their takeaways. And so I think being able to gather that 360-degree view of what's going on in your classroom, right? Like that's really where that growth mindset comes in. And I think some teachers have a hard time being able to be vulnerable to ask their students. And so I really like, Shane, how it seems like you are just really setting them up. You're not asking them on the first day, hey, ask your students how this lesson went. You are gradually building them up to be receptive to that feedback, because it's not easy feedback to get, but it's
exactly.
So I just think that is a really powerful piece of the puzzle that, I think I know as a teacher, as an educator, I probably didn't think about as much. And so I just think that is just really bringing everything full circle. And I think when students feel like they have a voice in their education, then they become more engaged even in that way. So I just think that the timeline and the way he's thinking through that is just a really powerful way, ultimately, to keep our students at the heart of what we're doing each and every day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Did anyone else have any additional comments or questions or anything that we can try to answer?
I don't know if I wanted to ask Mr. Purdy this, but how did he get his staff to actually buy into doing this? The teachers got so much on the plate and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, well, this is the plate. Improving instruction is the plate. It's not additional to that's the plate. And that's why you're paid, is to provide instruction at a high level so our students can do it. And I just wanted to see from him, how did he get his staff to buy in to seeing that this is not just another thing, this is the thing.
I will say this from a conversation I had with him yesterday and this morning, actually, that one thing that he said that he did, that it was difficult at first, and it was really he started off with those 6 teachers, and he actually told me a story this morning of where there was a teacher that was actually one of their star teachers, at the beginning, or was a star teacher. And what was happening in the school was that they had a lot of fights breaking out. And from the video from Kloud-12 and using that video coverage, they were able to discover that she was ending class 6 or 7 minutes earlier than what the bell time was. And so he said that he immediately wanted to go and be like, look, this is wrong. This is what you need to do, whatever. He said, but he realized that was going to have a lot of pushback. So what he decided to do then is they brought the teacher in, if I'm not mistaken, and they showed her some video clips because she knew she had Kloud-12, and they knew that because she had asked them to watch her class. So they showed her that. And so he said it was a process of really teaching her how to effectively teach bell to bell, and then also embed that in the PLC, but not for him. He said that with teacher buy-in, it wasn't simply just whole school PLC where everyone learned the same thing, but he also made it specific and individual for teachers and what they needed specifically, because this teacher was a master teacher, was an awesome teacher, one of their lead teachers, which was why they purposefully put the camera in her classroom as they first installed it. But this master teacher was still ending her class 7 minutes earlier. And in those little 5 to 7 minutes, a lot of disruption was happening at that time. So because I asked him about buy-in yesterday and today, and that was a story that he had told me with the teacher, that is more of having to not force it on people as you want to do at times, but really getting them to buy in and share video clips, or tell them, hey, I want to go in live into your classroom, pick a day that's going to work best for you. And so they know that, that you're watching at that particular time. And then they invite you in the room, because with Kloud-12, you are able to set that time frame that a person can be in your class and they can end that time frame. So it's a good idea they invited him in and they were able to see it live and then give that feedback from that. So it's more of not pushing it like you want to, but really bringing that door of invitation in a sense to teachers, and then having them learn from that individually. And also, one thing he said is one way of getting teacher buy-in as well is, even if you have cameras in the entire school, starting with that small population of teachers that are willing and that have growth and are ready to grow, and start with them, and then let them be the advocates, those ambassadors to help spread that word, that positivity. But that's what he had said, is that teacher, they had to really learn from that video that she had of the last 5 minutes of class and really teach her. And Mr. Purdy, or is it working now? Okay.
For the minute, yes. We will try for as long as it will hold out. But
okay.
Listen, one thing I do want to add before, if anyone is trying to look at this thing with Kloud-12, the exemplars, we're going to use for each teacher. Like if one teacher has a strength in, let's say, the procedures, or another teacher has strength with use our own. So that way peers, just like we say with the kids, the teachers are the same way. It forces them to want to be better. It does. And we're going to have a bank of those. We promised them that there would be no big brothering.
Sorry, I think it went out one more time. But with that, I mean, again, you can hear him saying that it's moving from that big brother aspect, really trying to be an advocate for the teachers, because again, it is trust, and you have to be able to have trust amongst your staff, and wanting them to be willing to participate with that.
Manuel, one thing that he stood out to me is he mentioned a couple of times that he had teachers ask him to watch videos. I think that that's a really, letting them advocate, I think laying that foundation. I thought that was a really cool takeaway, that he's getting to that point where teachers like, hey, I was out yesterday. Can you take a look at this video? Hey, I'm doing this. Can you look at that? I think that's a really powerful thing to tune into.
Yes. Absolutely. And
Emmanuel,
yes,
I do. I'm on my cell phone.
That's fine.
So I may have enough service to answer some of the questions that they do have. This is Whitney Fulford. I know I don't even see him on the participant list anymore. Well, I think he just jumped back on.
Yes, that you can actually. Whitney is the academic coach at the school with Shane. One of the questions just to kind of elaborate on, if you can, is how did you get that teacher buy-in with using Kloud-12?
So I wasn't here last year when they first tried with those 6 teachers. But I'm pretty sure he sat down and had a conversation with those 6 and how it would be used, and use those as teacher leaders throughout the building. And then we just constantly reiterated that we were not watching them. I know y'all kind of talked about, I caught the tail end, how you were talking about the big brother factor.
Mm-hmm.
We constantly reiterated that nobody was watching those videos. And nobody has ever used those as a gotcha for the teachers to lose that trust between them.
Right. I love that. What are your plans for moving forward next year with just, I know you and the principal are going to be working together, but what are just some of your, what do you do as an academic coach to really assist your teachers?
Holding those PLCs that he was talking about, guiding them how to use those reflection guides, breaking it up into smaller, just like we tell them to chunk and chew in their classrooms, we chunk and chew that reflection guide, and just focus on one thing at a time, not overwhelm them. So if we're focusing on the beginning of classroom procedure, Now we're going to go focus on engagement. Just small pieces at a time as to not overwhelm them with everything that's going on. So our next step is the engagement. I think we're going to be stuck in that for the rest of the year. And then as an impact team, we'll come back together at the beginning of next year and figure out what our next focus needs to be.
I love that. I love that. And that's powerful. It really is powerful. I am going to be respectful of everyone's time. It is now 2:02. I do want to just thank everyone so much for joining. Thank you for attending. For any follow-up questions that you may have, or if you would love to set up a meeting for your district or school leadership team, you can contact me at Emmanuel@Kloud-12.com. And I'll be glad to either answer that, set that up for you, or get you to the right person for that particular meeting. You can also set up directly at calendly.com/Emmanuel Reddish. And as I mentioned before, I have my lovely colleagues on the phone. I have Kaylee, Caitlin, Roxanne on here as well. You can use the first name and put that at Kloud-12.com. I want to thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Thank you again, Mr. Purdy. As I say before, like, I hardly ever am speechless, but this is definitely one of those times because I'm just kind of overwhelmed at how wonderful a presentation and just the efforts and strides that you're doing every single day there in Seminole to work. And I'm a little jealous as well because they're a little closer to the beaches down that way, close to Florida. But I love it and I think it's great. And so I want to thank everyone for being on here today and thank everyone for joining. Thank you for the comments that were there. Thank you, Dr. Adams. Thank you, Mr. Moats. Thank you, Kelly Martinez. Thank you, customer success team. Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Just thank you, everyone. Miss Whitney Fulford, sorry. Thank you for everything. I just appreciate that. And to answer your question, Thomas, we'll make sure that that's shared to you from Shane, okay? Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful day and a great afternoon.